You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot of MLB news to talk about. Specifically, the Giants seemingly getting over the finish line in the Tommy Stella sweepstakes. This has been in the works for a while, but it seems like Stella is going to sign a 3-year deal worth about $19 million to be a San Francisco Giant. And this is a really good move for the Giants. I like Tommy Stella a lot. I thought he made sense for the Yankees. I thought he could be a sort of utility infielder. I didn't think he'd want a big contract. You know what? A little over $6 million a year? That's not a big contract. 3 years may have been a little more than I was willing to give him if I was Brian Cashman. But for the Giants, it makes sense. For the past couple years, the Giants have had Donovan Solano as their primary second baseman. And he's been a great Giant. He has a career .328 average with the Giants. The thing is, though, in 2019, he only played 81 games with the Giants. And last year, he played in 54 games. So while he has been playing a lot for the Giants, it's really not a big sample size. If you're a Giants fan, and you pencil in Solano for 140, 150 games, you've got to wonder what he's going to do. Before he got to the Giants, he was out of the majors. In 17 and 18, he didn't take a single major league at bat. In 16, he only played 9 games for the Yankees. Nothing in his past shows that a 300 average is sustainable. You aren't going to get 290 either. 280, no. 270, no. 260, probably not. 250, okay. I'll give you 250. But I'll say this. You know that Stella is going to give you better than a 250 average. Last year for the Angels and the Athletics, he hit .281 with 5 homers and 25 RBIs. The year before that, he was an all-star for the Angels. Hit .295 with 16 homers and 44 RBIs. He is a proven major league player. Donovan Solano isn't. Can Solano be the Giants' super utility guy going forward? No question. I don't mind that at all. But the Giants really couldn't go into the season with Solano penciled in at the Keystone on opening day. That wasn't going to work. Stella is a much better option. He makes a ton of sense. This is the biggest deal that Farhan Zaidi has given out since taking over the Giants. But I think Stella is going to prove that it was wise to invest that contract into him. I think he's going to do really good things with the Giants. Moving on now to the Cardinals, bringing back Adam Wainwright for 1 year at $8 million. And the Cardinals kinda had to bring him back, to tell you the truth. Adam Wainwright is one of the greatest pitchers in St. Louis Cardinals history. Obviously, he's not as good as Bob Gibson. He's not as good as Dizzy Dean. I'll even go further back than Dean. Jesse Haynes was better than Wainwright. But Wainwright may get the final place on the Cardinals pitching Mount Rushmore. I'd have to think about it, but I'd put him over Bob Forsch. He was with the Cardinals longer than Chris Carpenter. You can make the argument that that spot should go to Wainwright. And when you have that type of a player saying to you that he wants to come back, you really don't have much of a choice but to bring him back. And you know what? This guy seems to be undergoing a little bit of a renaissance. After his third All-Star season, he really fell off. In 15, he only pitched in 7 games. The year after that, he had a 4.62 ERA. He led the National League in hits given up and earned runs given up. The year after that, he had a 5.11 ERA. The year after that, he only pitched in 8 games. Then in 19, he turned his career around. He went 14-10 with a 4.19 ERA. This past year, he went 5-3 with a 3.15 ERA. He led the majors in complete games with 2. And we know that he can pitch in the playoffs. I still remember him striking out Carlos Beltran looking in Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS. One of the most underrated moments in recent baseball history. In the top of the 9th inning, Yadier Molina had hit a 2-run home run off Aaron Heilman to give the Cardinals a 3-1 lead. Adam Wainwright came in to close the game out. He gave up 2 straight singles to Jose Valentin and Endy Chavez, who earlier in the game had made an incredible catch to steal a home run away from Scott Rowland in the top of the 6th. and he doubled up Jim Edmonds after that. Cliff Floyd pinch hit for Heilman. He struck out. Jose Reyes lined out to the Cardinals center fielder, Jim Edmonds, 2 away. Paul LaDuca drew a walk. So, bases loaded, 2 men out for Carlos Beltran. It's a moment that you dream about when you're playing baseball with your dad. Beltran struck out on 3 pitches. Did I need to give you a play-by-play on what happened in Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS? Absolutely not. Did I want to? Absolutely. The bottom line is, Adam Wainwright is a Cardinals franchise icon. They had to bring him back. $8 million is fair for him. And make no mistake about it, the Cardinals have just as good a chance of any team at winning the NL Central. The NL Central is the most wide open division in baseball. You've got to remember, last year, they had 4 teams make the playoffs. Every team in that division, except the Pirates, made the playoffs. I mean, I'll say this. There are rumors that the Rockies and Cardinals are gaining traction on a Nolan Arenado trade. If Arenado goes to the Cardinals, they're winning that division. I don't care what else happens in the offseason. If the Cardinals get Nolan Arenado, they're winning the NL Central. But as it stands at this very moment, Nolan Arenado is still a Rocky. So the Cubs still have a pretty good chance of repeating as NL Central champs. They haven't traded Chris Bryant yet. So at this moment, Jock Peterson is his newest teammate. The Cubs signed him to a 1-year deal worth $7 million. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not crazy about this move. Did the Cubs need to add hitting? There's no question. The only players to hit over 250 for them out of qualified players were Jason Hayward and Ian Happ. Now, the Cubs had great pitching. That's why they won the division. Obviously, that pitching is no longer there. Darvish left. Lester left. Jeffress is a free agent. So you'd like the Cubs to fortify their hitting a little bit. That's kind of the only thing they can do. But they just added another feast or famine bat. That was the last thing on earth they needed. You take a look at what the Cubs did last year. Guys like Rizzo, Baez, Bodie, Bryant. They all didn't even hit their weight. We know this lineup has power. Rizzo has power. Happ has power. Hayward has power. Bodie has power. Round it out with guys who are gonna hit for a high average. Not another guy who's either gonna hit a home run or strike out. That's Jock Peterson. I'm not saying Peterson's a bad player. I like Peterson. In 2019, he had 36 home runs. But you know what his average was? 249. You know what his on-base percentage was? 339. He's a terrible fit from a baseball perspective and a position perspective. Where's he going to play? You're going to put Peterson in left? Okay, that means that Happ is going to play center and Hayward's going to play right. That's perfectly fine. No complaints there. What are you doing with Nico Hoerner? The infield from third to first is Bryant, Baez, Bodie, Rizzo. Where's Hoerner gonna play? I want to see Hoerner play. The little bit I saw of him in 2019, I liked him. He hit 282. 3 homers, 17 RBIs. Last year he wasn't good, there's no question. He hit 222 with just 13 RBIs. But now you basically made it so Hoerner's going to start the year in either AAA or on the Cubs bench. I'd rather see Hoerner get a shot than bring in Peterson. I'm not crazy about this move for the Cubs. Do they have a chance to win the NL Central? No question. Like I said, it's wide open. But I fear for their pitching and their ability to manufacture runs. I don't care what direction baseball is going in. You still need to manufacture runs. Moving on now to the Phillies signing Matt Moore to a 1-year deal worth $3 million. And I understand that they needed to flesh out the back end of their rotation. Outside of Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Zach Eflin, no Phillies starter had a good season last year. That's not to say that I'm giving up on guys like Spencer Howard and Adonis Medina. They're both solid prospects. But the Phillies really did need to solidify the back end of their rotation. Matt Moore is not going to do that. Look, I remember when Moore was one of the best pitchers in baseball. He made the All-Star team at 24 years of age. He went 17-4 that year with a 3.29 ERA. It looked like he was going to be a really good pitcher for a really, really long time. Then his career went south. He got hurt in 2014, and he just never seemed to rebound from it. In 2017, he led the National League in losses with 15. Here's a guy who since 2019 has only pitched 10 innings. To give Moore $3 million and point to him as a guy who can be your fourth starter, that is a recipe for disaster. I know that the Phillies need lefties. No question about that. But you've got to do better than Matt Moore. I am extremely skeptical about his chances to rejuvenate his career. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And I really want to preview the 4 games this weekend that feature 2 ranked teams. And I'll start with the game that's happening tonight. I don't know if you consider Friday night the weekend. Some people do, some people don't. It's kind of weird. That, of course, is Iowa, Illinois. This is going to be an offensive slugfest. The over-under on this game is 161.5. Take the over. I know that seems high. I promise you it's not. Both these teams are averaging over 82 points per game. Iowa is averaging 90.7 points per game. That's the second best mark in the nation. Illinois is averaging 82.9 points per game. That's the 18th best mark in the nation. These two teams are very similar. Now, the way that these teams get to over 80 points a game is kind of different. Iowa is obviously very Luka Garza-centric, and when you have Luka Garza, that makes sense. He's one of the best players in college basketball. He's leading the nation in points per game. He has just under 27 points per game. He's an absolute beast. But there is a significant gap between Garza and the Hawkeyes' second best player, Joe Wieskamp. That's nothing against Wieskamp. He's a really good player. He's averaging 14.5 points per game and 6.7 rebounds per game. For a guy who's 6'6", to average that many rebounds, that's impressive. But the Illini are a little more equal in terms of their offensive distribution between their two big guns, Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn. Dosunmu's averaging 21.7 points per game, 6.3 rebounds and 4.9 assists per game. Absolute beast. Cockburn dominates on the interior. 17.4 points per game, 10.3 rebounds per game, and a block and a half per game. You've got 4 matchups that you gotta key in on here. Dosunmu versus Wieskamp. Give me Dosunmu. Cockburn versus Garza. Give me Garza, but Cockburn will make him work. You've got the coaching matchup between two of the most underrated coaches in the nation, Fran McCaffrey and Brad Underwood. McCaffrey's been with Iowa for a decade now, and he's done a great job with that program. And Brad Underwood has turned the Illini around. But I also want to focus on the tertiary scoring. What are guys like Jordan Bohannon and CJ Frederick going to do, assuming Frederick plays? What are guys like Adam Miller, Trent Frazier, and Andre Curbelo gonna do? This is a really fun matchup. I hope we get this matchup in the Big Ten Conference Tournament, assuming we even have conference tournaments. Obviously, I hope we do. This game is in Illinois. It wouldn't stun me if Iowa won. It wouldn't stun me if Luka Garza went off for like 30, 35 points. He's obviously capable of doing that on any given night. But I think Illinois is more well-rounded. Their defense is leaps and bounds better. Guys like Frazier, Curbelo, and Coburn are really underrated defensive players. I'm going to go with Illinois. Moving on now to an inter-conference matchup. I don't know why we're getting an inter-conference matchup on January 30th, but whatever, I'm here for it. It's not a makeup game, I know that. In fact, I just noticed this. The next game I'm going to talk about is another inter-conference game, Kansas, Tennessee. So I don't know if this is a tournament. It feels weird to have a tournament in late January, but whatever, I'm here for it. Alabama-Oklahoma is going to be a really good matchup. I really like watching the Crimson Tide play. I love how they share the ball. I love how they gang rebound. They're an excellent perimeter shooting team. They are just a really good fundamental basketball team. Nate Oates has done an incredible job with this team. He's one of the most underrated coaches in the nation. He's more underrated than McCaffrey and Underwood. You've got 4 guys on the Crimson Tide who you really need to key in on. John Petty, Jaden Shackelford, Herb Jones, and Javon Quinterly. Any one of those guys are capable of killing you on any given night. Jordan Brunner is out. He's still recovering from that knee procedure. But Alabama has the depth necessary to withstand the injury of one of their best interior players. Namely, Herb Jones stepping up, which he's done. As for the Sooners, they haven't played since I correctly said that they would beat Texas on Tuesday. I did say it would be a rout, and it was for a little bit, but Texas made a furious second-half comeback. But Oklahoma won by 1. I did get that right. Texas did have different people out because of the coronavirus than I thought they would, but we have no idea what's happening with the coronavirus, so I don't feel bad about that. I also don't feel bad about saying that the Tigers and Mets traded catchers. I know that James McCann went from the Tigers to the White Sox and then the Mets, and Ramos went straight from the Mets to the Tigers. One of my friends said that. And he also said, hey, you're talking about the lefties for the Mets. Jason Shreve is a free agent. They've got to add another one. That wasn't my point. I was trying to be humorous about the trading catchers thing and the lefty thing with Loop. Should they add another lefty? Yeah. They can bring back Justin Wilson. They can bring back Shreve. It doesn't matter. That wasn't my point. Picky. But back to this game. Not much has changed with the Sooners. You've still gotta key in on Austin Reeves, Davion Harmon, Brady Manick, and from a defensive perspective, you gotta key in on Elijah Harkless. Lon Kruger's done a good job with this team, but I'll tell you, their win on Tuesday wasn't the most impressive. They shouldn't have allowed the Longhorns to come back and nearly win. I can say with confidence that the Crimson Tide wouldn't have done that. In a battle of two football schools that just so happen to be good at basketball also, much like it would be on the gridiron, Alabama will beat Oklahoma. Alright, now it's time to talk about Kansas, Tennessee. Early in the season, Kansas was rolling. They started out 8-1. Since that point, they've gone 3-4. They've actually lost 3 of their last 4 games. And their one win was an 8-point victory over a bad TCU team. Kansas is really struggling right now. This is a team that I picked as an early March Madness favorite. They look about as far away from that as teams like Duke, Kentucky, and UNC do. I mean, it comes down to this. The Jayhawks just need their starting lineup to step up. This is a Kansas team that doesn't have a lot of depth. Outside of their starting 5, and I'm going in no particular order. Ochai Agbaji, Jalen Wilson, David McCormick, Marcus Garrett, and Christian Braun. There's no one on the Jayhawks that scares me. Those 5 guys need to pick it up ASAP. And it's going to be up to Bill Self to help them out in that sense. If anyone can right this ship, it's Self. One of the best coaches in the nation. But I'll say this, it's going to be tough for the Jayhawks to get anything going against this stifling Volunteers defense. Tennessee has given up just 59.3 points per game. That's the 6th best mark in the nation. Guys like Josiah Jordan-James, Santiago Vescovi, Keon Johnson, Jaden Springer, and Yves Pons can all kill you defensively. It's next to impossible to score against this team. Now, this team would be a lot better if they had a true offensive threat. Rick Barnes is compensating for that by utilizing a more well-rounded approach. All 5 of those guys that I mentioned are averaging over 8 points per game. But John Fulkerson and Victor Bailey are their best scorers. They're both averaging about 11 points per game. For a struggling Kansas team to go to Tennessee and face a smothering Volunteers defense, that's not going to help them right the ship. Can they right the ship? The answer is yes, but I don't see them doing it tomorrow. Give me Tennessee. The last game to talk about is Virginia taking on Virginia Tech. You remember how I said Tennessee is the 6th best team in the nation in terms of points against per game? Virginia is the 7th best team in the nation in terms of points per game. They've only given up 59.5 points per game. Guys like Jay Huff and Reese Beekman are 2 of the best defensive players in the nation. Huff can also score, but so can Sam Hauser and Trey Murphy. This is a really good Cavaliers team. Don't kid yourself. It's very possible that they could repeat as national champions. Would I bet the rent on that? No. But they certainly have the players to do it. As for the Hokies, they like to think that they're a defense-first team, but they're not in the Virginia-Tennessee tier. They're in the tier below that. Keve Aluma is a good shot blocker, but that's about it. Hunter Couture and Wabissa Bede are solid at getting steals, but no one's going to be mistaking them for Elijah Harkless anytime soon. You've also got to focus on Nahima Lane and Jalen Cone. They're both averaging over 10 points per game. You may be asking yourself, why haven't I mentioned Tyrese Radford? Well, he's suspended indefinitely. The reason is that he hasn't upheld the high standards for students and athletes. God only knows what that exactly means, but the point is the Hokies are going to be without one of their best players. Without Radford, I don't see how they beat the Cavaliers. They'd have a tough time beating the Cavaliers even with Radford. Without him, they have no chance. Give me Virginia. Brooklyn Nets show comes your way on Monday night. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that Carl Pohlad was so rich that he bought his dog a boy.